Got questions about the Brazos, no more unknowns. Ever wonder where that water comes from or where it goes? We're unpacking the Brazos River.
When many of us think about the Brazos River Basin, our minds naturally go straight to the Brazos River itself. And why wouldn't they? It's a huge iconic waterway, and its name is literally in the name of the basin. But here's the thing, the basin is actually way more complex, woven together by far more rivers and tributaries than most people realize, and crucially, by some incredibly special lakes you might not have heard of. Today, we're highlighting Lake Limestone, located on the upper Navasota River. That's right, I said Navasota River, not the Brazos. It's a particular body of water that might be a little less known, but trust me, it is entirely special. Lake Limestone is a vital water supply reservoir and a key player in a much larger story. It's one of the essential reservoirs managed by the Brazos River Authority, and today we're talking about how it silently provides in a big way its history and all the things that make it special. Welcome to the BRA podcast, Unpacking the Brazos River. I'm Charlie Shugart, and I'm with our Public Information Office. Joining us today is John Dickson, Regional Lake Operations Manager. Thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
John, this is the first time you're joining us, so tell us a little bit about your history with the BRA.
Well, this is my first podcast, so you have to bear with me.
You're fine.
I've been with Brazos River Authority almost 23 years. In my former role, I was property administrator. So we bought a lot of right-of-way, administered a lot of right-of-way, bought property for the BRA for our operations, and also went through a divestiture up at PK. So in my former role, I got to get familiar with all three reservoirs. And when an opening was available at Lake Limestone, I was fortunate enough to be selected to have that role.
Oh, great. Thank you for joining us. Also with us today is Jackie Scott, Assistant Reservoir Manager and Program Coordinator. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your history with the BRA.
I've been at Lake Limestone for 38 years. Started as a clerk typist and worked my way up through the lake operations.
Awesome. And so we're also very lucky to have Scott Davis, Lake Ranger Sergeant. Tell us a little bit about your history here with the BRA.
Hi, Charlie. Thanks for having us in. I'm Scott Davis. I'm a resident lake ranger at Lake Limestone and took that position in October of 2017, so just at 8 years. I've been there and working, keeping the lake safe and try to do our best to keep the project secure, but it's been a wonderful experience.
Well, I appreciate all of y'all.
Charlie, let us ask you a question.
Yes, go ahead.
What does Brazos, how did that name Brazos get derived? And what does that mean?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the full name, original name that the early Spanish travelers gave it wasn't just Brazos. It was Los Brazos de Dios, which means the arms of God. And there are several legends that talk about why it might have been named that, but a common one is attributed to the Spanish explorer Francisco Vázquez de Coronado. And he and his men were about to perish from lack of water when a group of Native Americans found them and took them to what we now call the Brazos River. Their relief must have been incredible since they were certain that they were saved by divine providence. They named it this, saying that the river was literally God's arms reaching out to rescue and embrace them.
Well, there's a little history like that about the Navasota.
Do tell.
The Native Americans actually called it the Nabasota, which there are different theories on what that means. Some say it means muddy waters, and some say it means waterways. But their name was the Nabasota, and we transferred it into Navasota.
Oh, that's interesting.
So just a little tidbit of history there.
Yeah, I love that. So let's rewind a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about Lake Limestone's origin story and how was this massive project funded?
Well, it's no coincidence that we've got several power plants located around the lake. No tax dollars were used to fund the construction of this reservoir. It was done by selling bonds, I believe, and the electric companies paid for the construction of the reservoir. Also, we have another large employer in the area that is a part of the largest recycler in North America, and that's Nucor. Lake Limestone's been around since 1978.
Yes.
So we're approaching 50 years.
That's incredible.
Remarkably, Nucor's been there about 50 years.
50 years.
Water drives a lot of economic engines, and Lake Limestone is one of those. The water that is supplied out of that reservoir ultimately leads to a lot of jobs in the area.
We mentioned earlier that Lake Limestone was located on the Navasota River. Can you paint a clearer picture for our listeners? Where exactly is this vital water supply reservoir within the broader Brazos River Basin?
The headwaters are above Lake Limestone, originating, I believe, around Mount Calm.
Mount Calm, Hubbard area.
Yeah, and it runs through actually two other reservoirs before it gets to Lake Limestone, that being Lake Mahia and Lake
And Fort Parker.
Fort Parker. And so after the river flows through those, it comes through Lake Limestone. Actually, our office complex is located in Robertson County. The dam is located in Robertson and Leon County, but the majority of the lake is limestone.
Okay.
And so after the river flows through what has been created as Lake Limestone, it travels south and eventually joins in with the Brazos down around a town. What's the name? If you could imagine, it's a town called Navasota.
At Washington on the Brazos.
At Washington on the Brazos.
Okay. Well, for people who aren't familiar with this lake, how would you describe kind of what it looks like, what the activity is like out there?
Beautiful.
Call it the best kept secret in Texas.
I love that.
It's rural enough that we're not inundated with all the cities, big cities, and a lot of families use the lake for fishing and other boating activities. And
Very much family-oriented lake, and it's a place where you can kind of get out there and feel like you're by yourself and not surrounded by the hustle and bustle of regular fast-paced life that we have this nowadays, you know.
Yeah.
It's a great big deer population. There are bald eagles that are nesting just downstream of the dam, and people really enjoy. We get birders out. We have otters, family of otters that go back and forth from the river to the lake. Beavers, they're just cormorants. They get out there in droves in the wintertime. We do have parts of white pelicans out there. That it's just an amazing place to go out and do wildlife watching, for sure.
so last Saturday morning, I was out walking in our park number 5 along the bulkhead, a friend and I. And so one of the river otters was playing on some riprap there on the emergency spillway at the edge of the park. So he followed us along the bulkhead just in the water
Oh my gosh.
the whole time we were walking. And you don't get that every day. That's not normal.
Yeah. So I love that.
Jackie said it's the best kept secret in Texas, but I think I see that changing a little bit. We're so centrally located between the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and Houston down I-45. Personally, I've seen a lot of people purchase property on the lake because they have grandkids in Dallas, Houston, Austin, and this is a central place to locate where they can come on the weekend and recreate.
Since COVID, there's more full-time residents around the lake. COVID changed the dynamics of the people that live around the lake. Everybody was leaving the city, so a lot of people had second homes at the lakes, and they came to work during COVID and ended up just making this their permanent home and staying.
What's the most popular activity out there, do you think?
I think it's fishing as opposed to, we have a lot of, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of families get out there and you see grandma and grandpa pulling their kids around on the tubes, and that's a big draw. We do have a few wake boats that people get out and enjoy, but it seems like the majority of the people are out there taking advantage of it, the prolific white bass population, and it's a great crappie lake and fantastic blue cat lake, and it seems like it more and more we're seeing more bass tournaments on the weekends, that whether it be the high school tournaments or we got Tough Man coming up pretty quick. We do have quite a bit of submerged structure, quite a bit of timber, so you kind of got to know where you're going, and we try not to interfere with that. We don't allow people to just come out and do any stump removals, and so we like the structure to stay. We try to manage a habitat in that way. And we kind of pay attention to invasive aquatic plants and try to stay on top of those in invading up on the north end. So our partners at Parks and Wildlife, and they do a good job in helping keep those exotics subdued up there.
Do y'all have particular invasive species that y'all see out there?
Water hyacinth is the main one that we have here. Haven't documented any kind of zebra mussels yet.
Which is incredible.
Right. Yeah, we're trying our best to keep that out, but we ask the public to clean, drain, and dry their boats before launching into our waters, and also upon retrieving their boats to clean, drain, and dry before they enter another body of water. That's not just a suggestion, it's actually a law that we need them to abide by. That way we don't transfer species from one public water to another.
So the BRA owns and operates some parks on the reservoir, am I right?
We own and operate 2 parks. Park number 1, which is located on the west side of the lake by our administration office complex. And then we own park number 5, which is on the east side, straight across. Both are located by the dam. We donated parks 2 and 3 to Limestone County years ago. I'm not sure what year. And then park number 4 was never developed. There's barbecue pits, picnic tables, some small docks, and restrooms. We don't have electrical or water in our parks.
We have some piers that people can go out and access and do some fishing off of, and then some courtesy docks for the boaters.
Do you have to pay to use the parks?
No. There's no overnight camping at the park on the west side by our office, park number 1, but there is overnight camping in park number 5.
Park 5 is on the east end of the dam, and we're constantly receiving compliments on the upkeep of that park in a way, because there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of picnic tables, pavilions, and grills. And like I say, the short piers where they can go fishing or jump off the bulkhead and go swimming. We see people from all over. They have these websites to where they'll announce free boondocking for camping. Boondocking is where you don't have the electric and the water amenities, but we've had people in there from out of country.
Wow.
Met them in there from England. I met them in there from Germany. This is part of a loop where they're touring the country, and they'll come in here and just enjoy it.
Jackie and her crew do a great job maintaining these parks. After moving over there and living on site, one of my favorite activities to drive through the park and visit with the people that are using it. As we mentioned, we don't charge. We've got a traveling preacher that comes through on an occasional basis.
Andy, yes sir.
Andy, it's to visit with Scott. But one thing that I have noticed, sometimes you'll drive through and somebody will be sitting on a bench just probably trying to gather their day. No telling what's going on in their life. And they sit on a bench, look out at the lake, and you wonder, I hope this is some way helping them. I know Scott's talked to quite a few people that do that. These parks serve a valuable purpose, even if it's for one person to get right with their self or the Lord or whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
We've met some interesting characters too.
I bet it's a wide variety.
That one guy with some punching gloves on is getting after a tree down there one time when I approached him, and he said he was just kind of blowing off some steam. I said, well, stay with the tree. We're going to be fine.
But we do have a limit that they can stay, which is
10 days.
10 days.
And then they have to be gone 30 days. So we don't really have any permanent residents, and we don't really have an issue with that at all.
No, sir. I did get a text yesterday. Hey, Sarge, this is Larry. I'm that guy you met the other day. I'm back. Stop by and say hi when you get a chance.
Aw.
They know what the rules are, and at each park we have our rules posted, because we do have just real minor differences between the two, but they're posted at the entrances, and it's really interesting to get out and start talking to folks and kind of hear about their lifestyle and where they're from and why they're here, and it's kind of very interesting to get to know some folks.
Yeah, I imagine that's an incredible array of conversations and people. And
Oh yeah. It's a really neat aspect of the job. Yeah.
yeah.
And I have to hats off to the maintenance crew at Lake Limestone. They take a lot of pride on the parks and the administration complex on keeping everything maintained. Where people feel like they can go and it's all the grass is mowed, no litter on the ground, and
Bathrooms are clean.
bathrooms are clean, so they feel like they can use them and not have any issues there in the parks.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that, Jackie, the talent of the crew that we have over there, which BRA has throughout the organization, very little do we hire outside sources to come in and do work.
Everything from A to Z. Anything we ask them to do, whether it's building awnings or painting anything or pouring concrete,
Electrical, plumbing.
whatever we ask them, they can. We have the reservoir manager's house, and then we have the resident lake ranger's house.
Personally, I think it's a huge benefit to the lake and the community, not just to the people living in that house, but you've got eyes out there, because we have to remember, while we recreate on this lake, that the dam is critical infrastructure for the state of Texas. Being out there on site, you can see a lot going on. And we have a restricted area around the dam that we keep people out for obvious reasons. And so having somebody on site, I can think of a lot of instances where we've had to call in the troops, our maintenance and operation, because maybe there's a boat floating
Towards the dam.
too close to the dam, or so having somebody on site, I feel, is a big benefit.
And it also allows us a very quick response time. There have been incidences in the past, and just in my short tenure there, where minutes would make the difference in trying to get to, say, a capsized boat in inclement weather, and being able to go out there and drop that boat and respond pretty fast can make the difference,
Yeah, absolutely. What does the staff look like out there at the Lake Limestone office?
Well, we vary between 13 and 15.
Yes.
I'm there. Jackie's there in the office. Sharon Davenport, who started 2 days with the BRA before I did. She's a senior administrative assistant, and I don't know how to say this other than she's really, really good at her job.
Yeah.
Keeps everything running, keeps it in line, and just a pleasant person to greet the public when they come in. Yeah. A smile says a lot, and she's got a great one. Brandon Truitt is our maintenance chief, and he reports to Jackie. And Jackie's also in charge of the permitting for our docks and retaining walls and
the septic systems that fall within our area of jurisdiction.
Okay, so if someone were to build a dock or a retaining wall, they come to y'all's office and go through a permit process.
Yes.
Okay. What's the importance of a permit process?
It's not Wild West. It's a structured environment that has some consistency to it. Because if you don't have rules and regulations, it's not good for your reservoir.
This way, everybody follows the same regulations, whether it's a bulkhead, a boathouse, or a septic system. Then you keep them within those regulations, and it keeps good neighbors.
Right. That makes sense.
And nobody knows those rules and regulations better than Jackie.
And I have a inspector, Coker Holloway. He works with me. And then, of course, Brandon's got his maintenance crew and very talented group of men. And then we have the lake rangers.
Me, Wayne, and Cody.
Okay. Well, speaking of lake rangers, what are kind of some of the common questions you get from visitors, and what's a question you wish more people asked?
Questions we get the most and here recently is, how can we replace those gates without draining the lake? We have a set of 5 stop logs that requires a crane to set them into place, and they go inside a channel in front of the gates that will block off. We stack the 5 on top of each other in front of the gate, so that then when we crack the gate open, it'll eliminate the water between the stop log and the gate. And so that's the only water we're losing is in between
That's cool.
gate and stop logs. It's a good way to hang on to what we got.
Yeah, my gosh.
Since we're in the water business, we need to hang on to the water. Yeah.
Okay, and if you back up a little bit, you mentioned gate replacement.
We've got 5 Tainer gates that we operate. And a Tainer gate is simply, it's from the name of who invented it. I don't know if it's John or Jerry Tainer.
Interesting.
Like it's John Tainer.
John Tainer, but that's how the Tainer gate name got established. We've got 5 of them.
Okay.
The 5 that We're on our 5th replacement right now. It's installed, so we've got 4 new ones in place. They're in what we term trial operation. The previous gates, they've been in service almost 50 years. And so this replacement project, which you have to do to this infrastructure, will hopefully get us another 50 years. We've been working with a company to replace them. We've got an engineering firm hired that's on site with what they RPR. He oversees the daily operations. BRA's project delivery department has a construction representative that comes on site. We're in contact with them on a daily basis. The staff at Lake Limestone, we're not in charge of that project. That's the project delivery department where we get involved when it affects our operations.
Sure.
Because we'll talk about the difference between a water supply reservoir and a flood control in a little bit. But when we get into flood operations, we need to make sure that we can operate. And so we've kind of been there working alongside them and have not had any issues with passing flows through. We'll get into that in a minute. But it's been quite a project.
Yeah.
What this company decided to do was do all of their work and heavy lifting from a crane barge that they moored to the structure on the upstream side of the dam. So you got this big barge sitting there, and on there they've got a huge crane.
Okay.
These gates weigh between 40 and 50 tons.
Wow.
The bulkheads themselves weigh about 23 to 25,000 pounds. So there's a lot of steel flying through there.
Right.
And they do that from a barge-mounted crane that they take back and forth to a laydown area on our emergency spillway. I never knew what all went into coating a gate, but I believe the upstream side has 5 different coats, all a different color, so that if you get some wear on that gate, you can tell, each coating serves a function.
Are we talking about like paint, or is it just?
We call it paint, but it's a coating.
Okay.
And they're special coatings experts. I believe they're NACE certified. BRA has one in Dirk Bland. Dirk has been down to the site where they were working on the coating. And if you know Dirk, he is 100% on everything.
Yeah.
So it was good to have his eyes on there. And we've also got different companies that specialize in it that have been inspecting these all along the way.
That's a really neat process to have them be different colors. So you
Yeah, I
can
don't
see.
understand. The first color that we actually chose for the gates
Was supposed to be a light blue, and it ended up looking like periwinkle. We changed the color to a gray.
Yeah, all I can say is they're beautiful. Before we replaced the gates, we'd get a north wind and you'd get a little uneasy because that's right against the gates. And they'd been in there 50 years. And I'll tell you, we got a lot of good use out of those gates. They served a great purpose for a lot of years, but
Yeah.
our management always looking towards the future.
Right.
It's time to replace them. And so we've got 5 that'll get us by for a long time to come.
You mentioned how heavy they are. What are their dimensions like? How big are they?
I think they're 27 by 42.
I believe that's right.
The design that we went with this one, of course, when we built it 45, 50 years ago, a lot's changed since then.
Sure.
And so these gates have a series of, I'll call them catwalks on the back, where used to we would have to get a crane out and lower a man basket down with somebody in it.
To do maintenance on the back of the container gate.
Oh my gosh.
Or inspect it or,
Inspect it.
yeah. And so now we've got catwalks that you can go down, put a harness system on, and Jackie's maintenance and operation people can go down and do their inspections, which they're continuously doing.
How do the container gates operate?
Scott can explain this. We can operate them remotely or locally. Locally would be you're standing there on top of the dam. And Scott's he likes to go down and do it personally.
Well, I was taught that by your predecessor, Davey. The gates were getting old, and he said, we can operate these remotely, but you can't hear what's going on if you're in the office pushing a button. So he wanted somebody down there to operate the gates so that they can hear it, maybe getting in a bind or some kind of water dynamics that didn't seem right, like when you're trying to shut the gate and you've got an obvious obstruction at the bottom, then to lift it back up to let it clear. in a lightning storm, it's always handy to have that remote button. You don't have to be down there under those power poles where the lights are, and yeah, that's a comforting option there.
In this business, you have to plan for everything. And so if we're operating that gate in the local mode and something happens, we can go to a manual. We have a manual dial indicator, say the electronics go out, that tells us how high the gate's open, because we open in 6-inch increments, and then we can go to a foot. But that manual dial indicator will tell us how high that gate is open. Should something happen and the gate wouldn't lower, we've got a manual way to lower the gate.
Oh, wow.
You'll be there a while.
You have safety features to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's, this is a critical structure and a critical business. So the Brazos River Authority, off the subject a little bit, our communication is vital between the home office here and Lake Limestone. We got to be able to communicate. So we've always had a sat phone since they've been available. But BRA and its management installed a fiber cable all the way from Marquay to our office, which improved our communications tremendously, speeded up the internet. Communication is paramount.
Absolutely. And when John references the home office, we're talking about the central office here in Waco.
When Scott or any of our lake rangers or somebody's going to operate that gate, that's not Lake Limestone deciding, we got rain coming, let's go open a gate. This is a very strict, everything's been modeled out.
We have an operation and maintenance procedures that we have to go by, and that's directed by our water services department.
And our water services department is made up of hydrologists.
And they're very, very good at what they do. And they will tell us, raise gate 1 6 inches, gate 2 6 to keep up with the inflows that are coming into the reservoir.
You had made a comment that a lot of the questions you were getting were concerns that the lake level was going to drop because of this project.
And I can see where people think this is that we need to lower the level of the lake to replace these gates. And actually the opposite is what's there. The contractor floating his barge with his crane on it, the closer the water level is to full, which is 363 feet above mean sea level, the better it is for him.
Scott, if you don't mind, what is the most rewarding part about being a lake ranger, and maybe what's the most difficult or frustrating part?
The most rewarding part is being in a public servant role. It comes with its up and down as any law enforcement job would, but being out there and it may be, hey, I broke down out here, or they got a call this last Easter that a lady was very frantic, that they were out in the middle of a lake and they were taking on water and the boat was sinking. And whenever you can respond to those and get somebody that is totally out of sorts and scared to death, and you get them in and able to get the boat in, those are very rewarding. The scary times are when you have inclement weather involved, and it's got high winds, got low water temps, and capsized boats and elderly. That I've come across that before, and those are the scary times.
Yeah.
And I remember having a couple of wardens in a boat with me on New Year's Eve night that we're all three hanging on pretty hard, just trying to locate a drifting boat out in a cove. So,
Oh gosh.
yeah, it's interesting, but the rewarding aspect of it is the public service aspect of it. And but we do at times have to get into the law enforcement mode, and you're not always the most popular person on the lake at that point, but part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you wish more boaters or watercraft operators knew or did on the lake?
We have a boater education requirement now for people born after a certain date, and they're required to have the boater's ed.
And that's a state requirement, not a BRA.
That's a state requirement. That's exactly right. But as with anything, even seasoned boat operators could benefit from taking that. You're never too old to learn.
Sure.
Learn new things. And so I think that not only just abiding by the rules, but being courteous in your operation of your vessels. We got a campaign going on right now, watch your wake, and what you are doing may be within legal limits, but it's not very courteous to either shoreside residents or other vessels or swimmers or whatever. So it's always just think of the other person. It's what I wish people would do more of.
Right. No, absolutely.
Scott, in his role as, and he's mentioned this to me before, but it's an educational role that before people go on the water, it's not about writing fines or tickets. It's about educating them on how to do something properly. BRA, here a couple months ago, I forgot we've got some water bags. Not everybody should get a ticket. If you're doing something right, maybe you should get a reward. And so we hand out, they're waterproof bags that you can take on your boat.
Oh, that's nice.
Just to let somebody know, have a pat on the back that, you know what, everything's just perfect here. And we appreciate that.
I'll tell you a funny story. This happened just a couple of weeks ago. I had our new guy, Cody, was with me, and I checked this boat, and they had everything 100%. And so I said, Cody, hand him one of these bags. We appreciate you being a safe boater, And the operator said, well, this makes up for that ticket you gave me last week. And then, and so
So some get both, huh?
Right. Well, that
you put
was
the ticket in the bag?
That was a learning experience. He got the ticket week before, and I didn't recognize him this second week, but he said, man, I appreciate, and he get complimented on, this is a guy you just wrote the week before, and he's thanking you for being out there. And we see a lot of people out there. It's hard to remember everybody, but there's some that you can pull up to and call by name, and still got to count life jackets. But we have a good reputation, I hope we do, and a good relationship with people that come out and enjoy the lake.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the parks.
A family that's out, they have small children with them, and they see their parents get rewarded for doing something right. What kind of effect does that have, and how does that trickle down? Just a lot of good comes from it.
And that's what you want, is good relationships with the people around the lake. Even though you have to get a permit and stuff, all you're doing is seeking compliance. You're not really there to make their life hard or anything. You just want, here's the regulations, let's just do it right, and then
set them up for
set
success.
them up for success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. An important distinction about Lake Limestone is that it was built for and is a water supply reservoir. When we say that, what are we permitted to use for that?
We've got 204,000 acre feet, football field, 1 foot deep of water.
As an acre foot.
That's acre foot.
Okay.
So we got 204,000. I think we're permitted by the state to use 65,000 acre feet of that. So we are a water supply reservoir. There's no flood storage in Lake Limestone.
What does that mean for there not to be flood storage?
Well, the Corps of Engineers, the lakes that they operate, Whitney, Aquila, Waco, Belton, Temple, Granger, Somerville, Proctor, those are all flood control lakes. And their flood pool may be, let's just say, 1,000 feet above mean sea level. Have you ever seen a bullfrog croaking?
Yes.
Well, those core lakes can blow up like a bullfrog and hold water. They don't have to, they're designed to catch those floodwaters so that everything below them is not inundated and you can manage the flow. And so they'll blow up like a bullfrog and they'll let that water sit. And when the river is conducive to the right conditions, they'll let it start trickling out so that you don't have damage to properties downstream.
That is my favorite description I have ever heard of that.
It's the only way that I can think about it. And, Lake Whitney above Waco here, it can get, it's a huge lake already, but it can hold a lot of flood water. My ancestors used to farm up around Golson before Lake Whitney, and they'd get crops wiped out. They just couldn't control it, but Lake Whitney helps to control that. And so, but we're water supply. What comes in, we got to go out. At all times, what do we have, Jackie, for our environmental flow?
6 CFS.
6 CFS, and that's cubic feet per second. We generally run about 6 CFS to provide enough water in the river downstream of Lake Limestone that would emulate the natural flow. And so that environmental flow was determined, and that's what we are generally letting out, 6 CFS.
So when you're saying what comes in must go out, we're talking about when the lake is already.
If our lake is designed to operate at 363 feet above sea level, and then at 366, we have,
A building restriction easement.
we don't want anybody building in that.
That's in accordance with the deed of records whenever the land was bought to build Lake Limestone. We put BRA in the deed of records, took flowage easement or building restriction easement up to 366.
And then we have a flood easement, an inundation easement, so to 370.
Okay.
I don't think we've ever approached that. Our water services department does such a good job that we've never activated our emergency spillway.
That's incredible for 50
Yeah.
years.
Oh, it's the guys are great. You know, they model for droughts, they model for floods. I can't say enough about them.
Well, with 6 CFS being the environmental flow, do we know what the largest release has ever been from limestone?
I'm gonna let Scott talk about that because he just did that last year.
Last year, in the first part of May in 2024, we were releasing at the max, what was it, 78,000
CFS.
CFS, and the water was just incredible. That was coming in. We had a river on both sides of the dam, and it was, I guess, the historic release of any lake that BRA owns. That's the most we've ever released from one of our reservoirs.
From any of the 3? Oh, wow.
Well, and that was one of those deals where Water Services was very much on top of everything, and we were making adjustments to that, if not on an hourly basis, but it was on a 50-minute deal. We had to, those guys were staying on top of it, and kind of having to shoot from the hip a little bit and adjust protocols because this was a kind of never it was a brand new thing. So we got through it, but it was a
All hands on deck.
yeah, everybody was on board, and it went pretty smooth.
It actually went really smooth. And early into the event, I was not at the lake. Scott was running it. We do downstream call notifications once we get above 2,000 CFS. And CFS is cubic feet per second. So you imagine a water 1 foot wide, 1 foot high. And we had 78,000 of those per second going out of those gates. But early on, our general manager, David Collinsworth, he stood up what we call our emergency communications protocol. And we were having meetings every hour, keeping everybody. That's why we have talked about how important communications are, keeping everybody abreast of exactly where we were. Because at the height of that flood, we had one gate closed off because of our Tanner Gate project. So we did this with 4 gates. And at one time, Scott had those, all 4 gates at 20 foot, raised 20 foot apiece.
Wow.
And that's the highest that they had ever been.
To put into perspective what Water Service said, 78,000 CFS, this flow rate would fill 44 Olympic-size pools per minute.
Oh my gosh.
Per minute. I've forgotten, Jackie may remember, they told us that we had released enough water to fill that lake.
Total volume of water released during that flood event was about 200,000 acre feet, which is roughly the total capacity of Lake Limestone.
It was just that much rain locally and upstream?
I think it went up and sat up above Mahia, and of course Lake Mahia and Fort Parker, they all filled up. But
Then we had 10 to 15 inches of rain up there in that watershed and it was already saturated. So,
But we have what's called a downstream call notification system.
Okay.
So anytime we made adjustments to gate, you can sign up and get it by text, email, voicemail, however you want to get it.
And this is anyone in the public?
Yes, and you're going to get when we have operations on that gate. And so the communications with local officials, BRA has an emergency management coordinator, Don Naylor, and I keep telling you everybody's good at what they do, but that's because they are. And so Donnie has a relationship with all the county officials up and downstream in the basin that he'll let them know there's a lot of water coming your way. You know, once the water receded and roads weren't underwater anymore, everybody was safe. And so we have an emergency action plan that we utilize. It's not something that we take lightly at all, and communication is the key.
What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about how a reservoir like this is operated?
We talked about this the other day and said one of the questions that you get most is how low's the reservoir? How low are y'all gonna, and when are you gonna fill it up? Well, that's a little out of our hands on the fill up part.
You don't have a faucet to
No,
It's up to Mother Nature.
but it's just people that aren't in the reservoir business. It's a logical question, and so they want to know how low it'll go. And what's the lowest we've been, Jackie?
I believe we went almost to 12 foot.
That's probably back in 2011, 2015,
2011, 2012. But every drought ends with a flood, and every flood ends with a drought most of the time.
Yeah. Outside of droughts and there not being enough rain, why else would the lake level drop?
Evaporation.
It's our number one customer.
Evaporation?
Mhm.
Yes.
It takes that much.
Absolutely.
We can lose a half an inch a day in the summertime, or sometimes just slightly over.
Oh, that's wow.
And you spread that over a reservoir that's roughly 12,000 acres. That's a lot of water that Mother Nature's soaking up. Y'all measure that every day, don't you, Jack?
Yes, we have a weather station, and we take those readings every day.
Oh, that's cool. How do you measure for evaporation?
We have a
Evap tank that
Evap
we have
tank.
up on top of the hill. They did kind of a test deal at one time where they had a floating one in the lake, and they decided that wasn't the wave action. It just wouldn't allow for it. But we have a weather station up on top of the hill that monitors and keeps up with, mimics what the lake would be doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
tied into our SCADA system, so we can look at it like for rainfall, for evap, stuff like that. We can look at it all day long,
Yeah.
see what's going on with it.
The history that we have on that lake and how it operates with Mother Nature is pretty extensive.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so speaking of the dam, Lake Limestone was formed by the construction of the Sterling C. Robertson Dam. Do you know much about the name of the dam? Is there a lot of history with that?
Well, it's Sterling C. Robertson. And Jackie, what's the C stand for?
Clack.
Clack.
Clack. And Sterling C. Robertson was an early Texas pioneer that was given a huge amount of land by the Mexican government. And then they came back and subsequently took it away, gave it to somebody else. And so he was instrumental in the early Texas history. The area was so big. In my former role with BRA, we operate a system or a pipeline that moves water from one area to another. And we went across a ranch. They called it the Robertson Ranch. And this is over near Salado, and they were descendants of Sterling C. Robertson.
Oh, wow.
And I believe that property has a couple structures that are on the National Register of Historic Places. So he had a vast amount of land. Then Lake Limestone, I was trying to figure out how they got that name. Jackie reminded me that we're in Limestone County.
Parts of it.
If we could get Jackie to explain the lake effect.
So my husband worked at NRG, the power plant, and he would always say, oh, here comes a rainstorm. The lake's going to kill the storms. And I always used to think, oh, he's just saying that. So I asked Brad Burnett one time, I said, is there such thing as a lake effect? He said, oh, yeah. So then I had to tell him he was right. Sometimes the thunderstorms would be coming at you and split and go around the lake.
We were referring to the families enjoying the lake and it being kind of a low-key, easygoing type atmosphere, and that's what I've enjoyed about it. But watching my grandsons enjoy it, it is a pretty serene lifestyle to be sitting there drinking your coffee early in the morning and watching the sun come up over the lake there, or watching the moon rise on a real bright moonlit night. That's kind of what gets me going. Just enjoying the serenity of it and watching my kids enjoy being out there and enjoying that, what I consider country living. My grandsons are city boys, and so they really flourish when they come to the lake.
If you could give the public one piece of advice, what do you think is the most important actions we can take to help preserve the lake's health for generations to come?
Follow the rules.
Taking pride in kind of taking care of the place you like to go visit so that it can be used in the future for people to come, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've touched on a lot. Is there anything else you guys would like to share that we missed you guys want to add on?
I think one of the main reasons that we haven't experienced any zebra mussels is that they've heard Jackie Scott is at this lake and they're scared to death to come over there.
Amazing.
Or it could be Scott that they're scared of.
Could be Scott.
Yeah. Come enjoy yourself, enjoy the lake, but be safe and be smart about. If you make plans to come to the lake and then the weather throws a curve at you, kind of adjust to your plans, because some people were going to go do it no matter what is thrown at them. So come enjoy it, but be safe about it.
And come by and have a cup of coffee. We always have coffee on in a conference room. We can sit and visit, and we welcome the interaction.
I love that. And if anybody would like a map of Lake Limestone and its park, reach out. You can email information@brazos.org, and we are happy to mail you a map for free. John, Jackie, Scott, thank you very much for joining us today.
Enjoyed the visit. Thanks for
Enjoyed it.
having it.
Thank you, Charlie.
Absolutely. If while listening to this podcast, you have a follow-up question or something you would like to learn more about, please reach out. You can email us at information@brazos.org. We're happy to fill in any gaps that we might have missed. And if you have a podcast episode topic you would like to hear about regarding the Brazos River, the basin, water supply, all that is in between, we are happy to hear from you. Again, our email is information@brazos.org. And with that, we're out. Thanks for joining us on Unpacking the Brazos River.